Hello everybody, this is Jordan with TrueHumanity. Got a good video today. I think we're going to take a break from the heavy stuff of the Younger Dryas event and the evidence. We've been talking about that in the past few videos. And touch on a couple current affairs topics. So two main ones that, the first one actually does tie in with what we've been talking about with the Younger Dryas. But it's important and it's standalone on its own. So what I really wanted to touch on, and I'm going to put the link to this video in the video description here, and it's something it's a channel on YouTube I follow, and the channel's called Suspicious Observer. I mean, think about the name how you want, but the point of it is that this individual who runs this channel, I would call him the solar system's meteorologist, because he goes over everything, the interaction in our solar system between the sun and Earth and everything in between, and also delves deeper and goes, broadens that horizon by talking about our galaxy and the cosmos at large and all the interactions between that. So today's video is kind of important because part of his what he does in his videos is he'll show you the satellites that are imaging the sun on a 24/7 365 basis. And he shows that as the sun is rotating, we can observe the different aspects of the sun, whether that be solar flares or the black spots on the sun, coronal mass ejections. We saw a couple videos ago a comet just delve right into the sun. The gravity, the attraction of the sun brought it right in, and see you later, Irene. So it does call back to the last video where I was talking at the end about the Younger Dryas and the potential, or the potential evidence pointing to that what brought us out of the Younger Dryas period could have been a solar event, not necessarily an impact by a comet or asteroid or the like. So we're seeing in this video he did today, there's a big sunspot that's starting as the sun's rotating and this part of the sun is facing Earth. We're seeing this sunspot and solar flares and other ejecta coming out of the sun. So it does have the potential, depending on how big these flares or whatever they are, it could reach Earth. So not a doom and gloom, because right now we do have the magnetic field protecting us, and hopefully it won't be that big. Hopefully this is regular, because the sun is in a lower period right now. It's not as active. So this does tie in with the Younger Dryas, and showing a little bit more potential evidence or lines of evidence that could explain possibly some of what we see in physical evidence and others to ending of the Younger Dryas period, 11,600 or 700 years ago. So I want to preface this discussion real quick by reiterating a fundamental concept. Just as I've stated before, and I will state again, the cosmos, the universe, the Earth itself, and us here who inhabit the Earth are all intimately connected. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can't just take one variable out of the equation and still not expect to be affected by the rest of it, because we're intimately connected. So there's no real way to completely remove ourselves from this connection, this interaction, this interrelation. So I want to preface that to say it's important to remember these interactions and not to get tunnel vision. So not to get so focused in on one aspect, say just the solar events, right? Or just comets, or just whatever you want to talk about, and actually examine everything, all of the evidence, all these things we're seeing. So it's important that we don't get tunnel vision, but that we remember everything interplays and interacts with each other in this great cosmos. So to say all that, I say, yes, the sun plays an enormous role in what happens here on Earth. It's very apparent to people who open their eyes and see this. So it's a huge role. I mean, it's our sun. I mean, we could go into 10 hours of conversation about what our sun does to us, this planet, and the cosmos. But that's not what this is about. But I want to emphasize that the sun in our solar system is not the only player in this cosmic dance. So to focus solely in on our sun and say that's the be-all end-all, look no further, we found everything, that's silly, and that's dangerous to go down that road. I've worked in the medical field, and when you're helping somebody, you don't initially know everything that's going on with them when you're looking at them. So it's important that you're not tunnel visioning on one thing and missing something bigger, because their leg is bleeding, but they're having a heart attack. You shouldn't be focusing on the little bleeding on the leg. The heart attack is more important. So it just goes to show the concept of not completely tunnel visioning yourself into one silo, one line of thinking, but to examine and look at the evidence across the board and see how it all interacts and interplays. So I want to try and solidify this fundamental concept of the interplay and the relationship between everything, okay? Because I've seen, I'll say this. It's hard to discount the sun when electromagnetism is one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature. So you have electromagnetism, gravity, and then the strong and weak nuclear forces. And this isn't going to be a physics lesson because A, I'm not a physicist, but B, this is not the purpose of this video. But to understand simple physics, basics, fundamental physics, is that electromagnetism is one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature. So to say that the sun doesn't play a major role is irresponsible, but to say that the sun is the only major role is also irresponsible, because there's multiple different aspects you have to look at existence here. So to tie into this, and not to get into another discussion, but I want to build upon what I'm trying to convey here to show you the bigger picture, is that yes, electromagnetism is a strong force, and it's stronger than gravity, but it's not the only force in nature. And it's not the only thing in nature that we have to worry about. Even if electromagnetism or some relation with that has caused something else, that doesn't mean that we should solely focus on that. For instance, a comet, who knows what the sun and its gravity and electromagnetism and its interaction with our solar system does, because more research needs to be done. But just to say, oh, well, the sun did it. Oh, that's great that you recognize and you have identified that, but the comet's still coming to Earth, so what are you going to do about it, right? So it's things like these that you have to take the bigger picture into consideration. So I'm not discounting. I believe in the electric plasma universe. We see our sun. We see all these different evidence around us of what the electric universe is, and I'm not going to get into all that in this video. But in that same aspect, I've stated that there's an interrelationship going on with everything. So we have this, which is catching on into mainstream and across the disciplines of science, this hypothesis of a large planetary body in the far reaches of the solar system. Some people may know it as Planet 9 or Planet X, etc. And it's not this new age, Zacharias Hitchin thing. It's something that astrophysicists are seriously looking into and astronomers are looking into. But because it's so far away from a source of light, it's difficult to image this body because we don't have the light, the visible light, or the other detectors that we can try and find this with that far out. Plus, we don't actually know exactly how big it is, but we can tell that somehow something out there is affecting what do you call it? It's putting a wrench into the normal system, the normal the normal orbit of our solar system, okay? So we're seeing perturbations or disruptions, if you want to call it, on a semi-regular basis. Yet again, more work needs to be done, but the preliminary investigation is showing that there's some regularity to these cometary bodies coming in, and that we're also seeing anomalies out in the outer solar system with some type of body. And people may start right here and say, well, maybe it's the sun or electromagnetism. Of course the sun has to do with it. How do you think that body is being held in to this solar system? But the sun can't answer all of it. It can't say, well, that's the be-all, end-all. Well, it's its own thing out there. And as it's moving around the sun in a very elongated elliptical orbit, it has effects on the other bodies in that orbit. So I'm not going to go further into that, but I want to lay the groundwork of what I've been discussing here today. So as this Planet 9, or maybe a couple planetoids or objects out in the outer solar system, as they're moving through the plane of the ecliptic, and they're not in line with us, but it's kind of on a diagonal coming in, and as it's coming into this plane of the rest of the bodies of our solar system, it's disturbing things. What's it disturbing and where is up for debate, but we know that there's some regularity to the comets coming in from the outer solar system and descending in and disintegrating and doing all that other stuff that I don't want to get into today, into the inner solar system. We talked about how Jupiter kind of acts as that sentinel and removes a lot of that before it can get to Earth. A lot of other things go right into the sun because of its enormous power, and then unfortunately some things come and get sucked into our orbit, and well, we've been discussing and we'll discuss the detrimental effects of an impact from those. So as you can start to see, there's more than just one simple answer. There's more than here's the theory, here's it all. You know, you have to take into account all these different factors that come into play in this cosmic dance we're a part of, you know, on this cosmic stage that we're all part of. And in the same vein of that Planet 9, that an object out in the outer solar system kind of disturbing the normal equilibrium of things, you know, we have evidence right now of an ancient incident, you know, that is still with us today, and that's the Taurid meteor shower. And I'm not going to go into a Taurid talk. I mean, many people have done more research than me, and I will go into it in the future, but I won't today. But the long and short of it is, 20,000 years or so ago, a very large cometary body descended and started its journey to the inner solar system and got wrapped up in the whole cosmic dance between the sun, Jupiter, and Earth, and everything in between. And we see today that the remnants of this disintegrated and old ancient comet are still circling between Jupiter and the sun. And as Earth orbits around the sun, we cross the path of this Taurid meteor shower that's going like an elliptical. You know, it's like a race car on a racetrack, going from around the sun to Jupiter and back again. And we just so happen to cross these two paths twice a year, around October 30th to November 2nd, and again from June 30th, at the end of June. So I'm not going to get into the Taurid meteor shower because I'll do that in the future, but it's just to show you that there's multiple actors, there's multiple factors at play in this, and to focus solely on one cause of things is very irresponsible and can prove to be dangerous. And I believe that's what some of the ancients were telling us, that hey, you need to look at this huge cosmic picture. And obviously we're going to continue to talk about that going forward. So it kind of drives me mad when I see, you know, in comments or discussions where a lot of these people have starting to understand the electric universe and the plasma universe, the plasma universe, are making these knee-jerk or blanket statements and responses. You know, when people are having normal discussions about the cosmos or comets or whatever it is, I've seen people be very dismissive of other things and kind of use it as a trump card, no pun intended. But, you know, oh, have you heard of the electric universe or this or that? You know, just like this little zinger, this little grenade they drop in the conversation and leave. Well, do you want to be part of this conversation and understanding our cosmos and our place, or do you just want to say, hey, here it is? It's like saying, here's the theory of gravity. Here's the theory of gravity. See, drop the grenade. Well, thank you, but that helps. That does nothing to progress our discussion and, you know, trying to understand everything. So there's more to the entire picture than just the sun, than just our sun. And we see that across our galaxy, our interaction in our galaxy between our sun, our solar system, and how we move throughout the galaxy, up and down the galactic plane, like, you know, riding the crests of waves. We're not just in level field, you know, orbiting the center of the galaxy. You know, we do this little dolphin dance up and down and through the galactic plane. So all these things coming together, you can't just go and say one thing and go, here's the answer. So it drives me a little mad, and I know I should be releasing it, but I think it's important because if you're someone who's looking into this, you're sure to come across these knee-jerk blanket statements. And that it's all well and good, because I'm not discounting the electric universe theory, but we're at the infancy of understanding this great cosmic picture. So it's very irresponsible to come in and say, well, let me drop that bomb and let the pieces fall where they may. I know what I'm talking about. Well, let's have a nice discussion. So when you're taking in all these interactions of our Earth, the Sun, our solar system, the galaxy, and the greater galactic matrix and filaments themselves, and it just goes above, you have to take into this fractal nature of existence. And I won't go into that today because there's a lot more to go into, and it has to tie in with these ancient catastrophes. But there is a fractal nature to existence, and there is scale invariance, which means you could see something on a smaller scale, and it could be replicated at larger magnitudes of order. Okay, whether that be ripples on a beach from water, or a tsunami, so forth. So like I said, I don't want to get into those deep discussions today, but share with you this, this video that came across the daily, I call it the daily weather report, because I don't watch the other weather report other than, a weather app on my phone. I don't need to watch the Weather Channel. But this gentleman puts out these great daily solar weather reports, so you can really learn a little bit more about removing yourselves just from the our little place here on Earth and looking at the greater cosmic dance that we're all a part of. So that's important. As we begin to examine these things and see this evidence and learn and grow, it's important to expand what we're looking at and to incorporate that into what we're discussing. So there is that video that this gentleman put out, this daily solar weather, and I'll I'll link that in this video's description so you could go watch it yourself. It's pretty short. He does it daily. He does this report daily, and they're always under 10 minutes, usually probably between 5 and 7, 8 minutes. So it's something you could watch in the morning or right when you're starting your day or whatever, because he does them pretty early on Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. So the other story I wanted to bring up, which I was watching the video yesterday about, even though it wasn't yesterday that this happened, was the SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket launch. So what's important about this? What does that mean and all that jazz? Well, on the 11th of April 2019, the company SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's space agency company, his idea brought into fruition, they have done many rocket launch tests and trying to examine what's the best way, what's the most cost-effective way to get things or people from Earth into space and then further on, traveling to Mars or Moon or whatever. But what's the most cost-effective, practical way to do this? Because for decades now, the main mode of transportation from Earth to space has been rockets. And the problem with rockets is they cost a lot, there's a lot of fuel involved, and they're single use, they're one time only. If you've ever watched a rocket launch in person or on TV, you'll see that the fuel, the reusable rockets that take the payload, whatever it is, a satellite, a space shuttle, whatever it is, that bring it from the surface of the Earth into space and into orbit, these reusable rockets, you'll see, after they've done their job and lifting off that ship or that rocket, they detach from the main payload and they float down and whatever, either stay in orbit or crash down onto Earth and burning up in the atmosphere. Whatever they do, depends on the rocket size. But what Elon Musk and SpaceX are trying to do, and which is extremely important for the future of humanity, is try to figure out how can we use this kind of easy way to get from Earth to space. How can we use this easy way but not continue to waste rockets, because they're expensive. So, it's not just like an assembly line of things, like, bring out the next rocket and the next, fuel storage and all that jazz. These are expensive things to manufacture and put together. So I guess one of Elon Musk's and SpaceX's missions is to find out a way, how do we drive that cost down? How do we make it cheaper? And how do we do it more often? And what what happened on the 11th of April 2019, we got to see, first time ever, at least in recorded history, that we've seen SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket, which is their largest rocket. We saw them be able to lift a payload, I think it was a satellite or something of some company. We saw them be able to lift that into the atmosphere, and as it goes through its stages, the two side rockets, did their thing, used up their fuel and detached, and instead of just floating into nothingness or floating down or doing whatever, they have their own little boosters that now bring them back down to Earth so that they can be reused, right? Cleaned up, refilled, etc., and reused. So they're not gone. We didn't just waste this money. And then that main fuel tanker rocket finishes the job, and then that as well detaches and comes down to Earth. So in this video, we got to see, it's about an hour-long video, but the first, X number of minutes are them explaining things. So it's actually beneficial to watch how they're doing this. And then they do the, that famous, T minus 1, 10, 9, 8, all that. So you see the launch pad and you see the rocket. And for the most part, it's an uninterrupted stream of video showing you from the time those those rockets ignite to, I guess it ends around where, they're at a point of orbit with the satellite where, what are you going to do? Just watch it around the emptiness around you. But it's showing you that whole progression from, igniting those engines to the last big rocket booster detaching and landing back here. So both the booster rockets, the side rockets, landed back at the initial point of launch. And then due to the fact that the rocket itself continued, the main booster detached and was too far away, I guess for lack of better terms, to land back in Cape Canaveral, but it landed on one of SpaceX's drone ships in the ocean, several hundred miles off the coast, and successfully landed. This has never been done before. I think we need to understand the importance of this for the human species in our space exploration and moving forward, because what this means is we've successfully, 100% successfully, launched a rocket with its payload, a satellite, could be a space shuttle, it doesn't matter, into space where it had to go to its orbit. And what we've done is take that whole entire rocket that has been the catalyst to bring this object into space, and we've brought it back down to Earth safely, landed safely, so that it can be reused and replenished to keep going again. This is huge for humanity. It's ginormous because it lowers the cost of space travel, and it lowers the need for continuing to manufacture and build and create these rockets because they can be reusable. How many uses they get and etc., that's another story, but the concept remains that we can do it. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. So it can be replicated. I don't know what patents that Elon Musk has or whatever, but you can do it. It's been done. We see it. And April 11th, 2019 was a very important day, I believe, for the human species. And as I've said before, and I'll continue to discuss, if we can not obliterate ourselves in the interim, and we can try and change how humanity interacts and how we treat each other on this planet, this means the sky's the limit, literally. There's no limit past the sky, and it just, as we continue to develop these technologies and improve them, who knows where we'll be in 20 years, right? So this was very, very exciting stuff, and this is the only time I'll entertain this, I think. Maybe not. But all these naysayers and just many crazy people, we can call them crazy, who believe the Earth is flat. Everyone's lying to us. It's all a lie. Just be suspicious of everyone and everything. Well, you can go to Cape Canaveral and watch this rocket launch into space. Sit there with a binoculars, camera, iPhone, whatever you have. You can watch it go and continue to watch it go. And then you haven't probably moved, and you can watch those rockets come back down with the burn and scorch marks and all that stuff. And I think this is important because moving forward, I believe that as we have these reusable launch capabilities to space, it's going to make the cost of going to space cheaper. So I foresee very shortly, I believe, probably in the next couple decades, a space tourism industry emerging. And I know other people have seen that before. I'm not, saying something new and novel, but now we're seeing these steps in place that where, Mr. Skeptic over there, who you can't please no matter what, why don't you take a ride in a rocket and go up to space and see it for yourself, What can you do in an argument to make those people believe? There's nothing you can do. But I think by your words and your behavior and your action, it doesn't matter what they say, because you're able to live your life and interact with people better. So you don't have to dwell upon that. And I know that comes up, and we see it scattered throughout these discussions, and I've seen it on these platforms. So I'm not just saying this because I think it'll be a problem. It is a problem. For crying out loud, there's a documentary on Netflix about the flat earthers, and their fraternity of people who believe in that. So I think these are very positive moving forward. I know I touched on this solar event, or potential solar event we have to watch over the next week, because this part of the sun, which is spewing off, shooting out these solar flares, excuse me, is now turning to face the Earth. So we don't know what the effect will be. Will it even reach Earth? Will it be a big enough flare? I don't know. So it's just something to keep in mind, and it's not to be doom and gloom over. Excuse me. But I will share that video so you could see. He talks about other things in there, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with most of it. And I've discussed here what I disagree with on the electric universe theory and all that. But as a whole, obviously electromagnetism is one of the four forces of nature. You could get shocked here. We're all there's all electricity flowing through us. When your heart stops, as a medical professional, if there is some type of electrical activity going on, I can use electricity in a defibrillator to attempt to bring you back, bring that heart rate into a normal rhythm. So I'm not getting into a medical talk here, but just to show you that electricity obviously is ubiquitous. It's across a lot of things, right? But we also can see with our own eyes, and we see matter made up, and I talked about previously, and I will talk about further, about energy, being this pervasive thing. But, as you go further and deeper into quantum physics, and this won't be a quantum physics talk, you can start to see how matter is formed and the vibrations of energy, etc. So this is very cutting-edge science. This isn't New Age or some kind of religious doctrine or whatever. These are the cutting edges of quantum physics and science. So, just more of a picture to show you there's more to the story. There's a bigger picture here that we all have to take into account and continue to look into. The story isn't finished. We don't close the book right now and say, it's done. So, I'll post that video, the little solar weather report, I call it, our solar system's daily weather report. And you can see, in the beginning of the video, if you don't want to watch the entire thing, he talks about the solar aspect I mentioned. Excuse me. And then the Falcon Heavy SpaceX launch, which is a very huge accomplishment for humanity. And I think it's going to be great moving forward if we can continue this momentum and direction. So I'll post the link to that video. It's a little long, but, start from the beginning. You'll see the explanation and the launch. And as you see fit towards the end, as it's orbiting, you can, cut off the video. So here's a little more, just talking about, a little bit more of how these lines of evidence are thinking about a potential source of this energy and these anomalies we see that could have ended the Younger Dryas, and showing today that, yes, the sun is a major player, major actor in this whole situation here. So, more to come. I'll see what the next video will bring. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Göbekli Tepe and its importance, both when we take into account the catastrophism and the ancient civilizations, and how this is a paradigm shifter in and of itself as we continue to examine it. And it's just more evidence and more things coming forth that are showing that what we've been taught or led to believe, or preconceptions or whatever it may be, may not be totally correct. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I want you guys to have a great day. Go out and enjoy your life, enjoy nature, enjoy being with people, enjoy interacting with people. Just overall enjoy your life, try and make it positive. Because I think there's enough negativity and hate and death in the world for all of us many times over. So let's be that force that can go out and, you know, have a positive effect on this planet. So that's the end of this. If you found value in this video, I hope you'd like and subscribe and share this video. Subscribe to the channel, and again, I'll post in the in this video's description those links for the 2 things I talked about today. So hope everyone has a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.